The Finance Committee for Wednesday, March 24th, 2021 will come to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lear,
Present.
Mr. Swanson,
Present.
Mr. Hess, Ms. Polk,
Present.
Ms. Weber, Mr. Payton, Ms. Parker, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Fairfield,
Present.
Mr. Featherling, Mr. Dunnell, Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Searay. We have a quorum.
We have no request for public comment, and at this time, no presentations. There'll be one later in the agenda. We move to the approval of the minutes from February 24th. Is there a motion to approve? Parker, Payton's for a second. Any discussion on that? A roll call on the minutes, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Polk,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Mr. Payton, Ms. Parker, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Featherling, Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler. Motion carries.
All right, we move to the financial department. Mr. McCarty will begin with the miscellaneous financial reports and discussion, please. That's in your packet. You want to come up here?
Good morning, Steve. I still exist. It's not virtual.
All right.
I went to get on virtually, but I have a new computer and the audio is not working. I couldn't hear things. So. All right. So the first one, we'll do the miscellaneous financial reports and discussion. Sales tax. I think a good sign for the sales tax is for the retailer month of December that we were higher than a year ago. So that was pre-COVID, apples to apples. So I guess that's a good sign. We'll see how the rest of the year progresses here. It's an early sign. Use tax just continues to way outperform what we've done in the past, so hopefully that'll continue. Good start for PPRT. So we'll refer back to these as we begin to discuss the American Rescue Plan and lost, when we find out the details of what we're able to recover from our economic impact. These reports will not just be historical reports to look at, but they might actually become useful for what we might be able to recover. So if you look back at FY20, you know, and look at some of these are some of the major things we might lean on to potentially on the recovery, the recovery plan coming. So this brings a new meaning. We'll see as the details roll out for that, but just an FYI, but we potentially will be using a lot of this analysis for that. So any questions before I go on?
I would note for the committee members in terms of inmate and detainee bed rental, we do have a declining trend there because it's my understanding there's no new individuals coming into the Jerome Cone.
I didn't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you, Steve.
I would note for the committee in terms of inmate and detainee bed rental, we do see a declining revenue there. My understanding is there's no new individuals coming in terms of the detainees, and so unless that changes, that trend could be a reduction, but that can be one thing that we'll point to in terms of the recovery plan. Are there any other questions on miscellaneous financial reports? If not, we could move to cash flow analysis, please.
So we're heading into our 3 toughest months, if you will, of cash flow. I have not expanded beyond June yet for this report, just with all the activity, and the main focus right now is to get through the end of June. Our first distribution usually happens sometime in July for property tax, so getting through May and June will be. So we're beginning to watch things on the AP side. We're not late or anything, but we're watching, you know, as trend comes in on the inflow side, just to make sure there's no hiccups or anything or changes from the state level. So this is doable. We'll survive, but it's something that we got to keep a close eye on, you know, as flows. So, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't show up in these nice big chunks. You know, it comes in pieces all the way through the month, and then the big dollar amounts like payroll, you know, hitting at $1.1 million a month and every 2 weeks, and then you have IMRF payments that go out in one payment. So that's there's a little bit of managing to do sometimes when you get into lower amounts. So. So this is an update where we're at. It is, again, similar to a year ago. So it's manageable, but we do have to manage it, especially in these next few months. So just an update, and if there's any questions there, not.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hunter.
Steve, a question. Is there a lag in terms of funds coming from the feds, CARES money, or anything like that? Are we, I don't know if I should say, up to date in terms of what they owe us?
No, the CURE money turned around pretty quickly.
Okay.
We actually saw a higher receivable dollar amount actually from our normal grants, if you will, you know, which pass through the state. We have between 80 to 100,000 that of quarterly reports that happened right when COVID hit, and those reports were submitted. And as the state converted from working the way they were working to, you know, working remotely, there's a number of reports that got left that did not get processed. And you would think you can pick up the phone or email and say, hey, you guys forgot those, can you please do it? Well, there's a whole process. They'll go back and do that. So we're working on that. So the grants had, you know, unfortunately had a little bit of a lag. We're seeing a little bit. It's not a huge dollar amount, but there is some that it's not usually normal with that in those categories. So.
Okay, so you kind of intimated that we're going to be okay. So you don't expect any tax anticipation warrants being issued at all?
No, I don't believe we'll have to do that. It's just when you get to these dollar amounts, you just really have to watch it week to week. You know, I watch it daily, and as far as decision making and how much, you know, we pay out and when we pay it out and stuff sometimes come into play with what's, you know, on hand at that particular moment in time. So. And
what's the turnaround in terms of paying our bills?
Right now we are 30 to 45 days, so we're not. You know, by statute we have 60 days window. We are within that window. I don't foresee if we stretch it, it'd probably be 60 days right at our allowable window. I don't believe we'll go any farther than that. So.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, Wheeler.
Just a clarification, I want to mention that what Steve does, and you see these emails and so does Todd, he gets together the bills and then he recommends that we can let this chunk of bills go. We take a look at that as because we're authorized to actually pay the bills, not Steve. I want to clarify that. He makes the well, just for the record, it was the way it was said. I want to make sure someone didn't misinterpret that. He doesn't make the call, we do, and you provide that authority to the chairman and the finance committee chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Featherin.
Yeah. Steve, everybody's, I mean, a lot of people got checks from the government now, and they got 2 in the last When do you think you'll see a bump from that $1,400 from maybe half the people getting it? I don't know, maybe half, 3/4 of the people got it. Shouldn't you see an increase for the next month, this quarter, or?
If you
is
look
that-
at the very first page of sales tax, if you look at the left column is the retailer column. So, you know, if you see if people went out and spent what they received in March,
Okay.
here, we would not see that until June.
Okay.
So that's how that report, and
So
that's
you're-
how long it takes for us to
You're
see
a
that.
quarter behind, basically. If
Yeah,
we have
before we
have
actually get it back.
Fantastic across-the-board economy. It takes 3 months for us to feel
Yeah, before
okay.
we know what that is, yeah.
And
And we
there's-
only see it about 2 days to 3 days, maybe within a week before they actually send the money.
Okay.
So the information is not, you know, available to be able to watch that.
So you don't get a trend,
No,
month by month? or
No,
anything?
we're this is our trend right
Okay.
here.
I was
Yeah,
hoping you
we'll
got
watch.
I was hoping you got a monthly trend so you would know, so,
Unfortunately.
thank
yeah.
you.
Believe me, I've tried over the years and trying to watch that, and that's why we started watching Bradley, Bourbonnais, Kankakee, you know what I mean, to see what their trends, you know, to see how it reflected on our trends, just to try to gain as much knowledge as we can, you know, on that, so.
Any other questions on cash flow? If not, I don't believe we have anything we need to deal with in terms of claims recommended or not
Yeah,
recommended.
I don't have any. For this.
Nothing there. The monthly claims report is in your packet. Could I have a motion to approve the monthly claims report? Mr. Long, is there a second? Ms. Weber? Any discussion on the monthly claims report? Hearing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Polk,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Mr. Payton, Ms. Parker, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Featherling, Mr. Miller, Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler. Motion carries.
Okay, we move to the
Good, how you doing?
fiscal year 20, general fund contingency budget adjustment.
Yeah, you have a document titled just that. This is something we do annually. One of the last things it pretty much is the last thing for FY20 before the final report comes out. I believe everyone on this list had communicated throughout the year individually, you know, to you as far as their change. It's mostly related to COVID in some way, shape, or form, and some of the rules. And if you remember us talking about cure and cares and everything, on, you know, it was to be above and beyond something that wasn't budgeted, et cetera, et cetera. Well, and this is the result of that. We did not amend any budgets or general fund budgets throughout the year because we ran below budget in total for the general fund. So this doesn't change the general fund in total. It just changes from contingency budget to these individual departments, and primarily for their COVID and grant related activity throughout the year. So I don't know if there's any specific questions.
There's no action needed on this one then?
Well, for the committee to vote on it, but it's not an official, it's not an amendment, so it doesn't take 2/3 of the vote. It just,
Okay,
we've
take-
always in the past just done the finance committee and adjusting from one department to these other departments.
All right.
So it's an internal.
So we're
adjustment.
open for a motion on this. Is there a motion to approve this budget adjustment? Mr. Featherling, is there a second? Parker?
Fairfield.
Discussion. Any discussion on Zoom? See no one requesting discussion. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on it then.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Polk,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Mr. Payton, Ms. Parker, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Featherling, Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler. Motion carries.
We had an excellent presentation in the executive committee for those not on that committee or in the public. You may want to go back and look at that in the county's records in terms of our website through YouTube. But we do have some more information that Mr. McCarty's prepared, so I'm going to turn that microphone over him to do his presentation in terms of the rescue plan.
Yeah, I was just sitting there thinking, thank God I sent it to Kelly, because otherwise I had it on my workstation ready to go, and as a backup just in case something happens. So now I'll look at paper and if she can run that for me. As far as this information, it's going to look very similar to what the chairman did, because there's not a lot of information out yet, and it's very high level. So all your questions are good questions. We are waiting and watching and reading anything we can about this to see when the detail shows up. And as our understanding that the Department of our Treasury is the ones working on the guidelines, if you will, for this. So we're anxiously awaiting that. So planning, specific planning can begin. So right now it's a general overview. So.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask before you start, Mr.
Yes.
McCarty, thank you very much. There's one question that I wanted to ask. For example, the health department receives funds directly from the federal government, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you identify for me what other entities in county government receive the money directly from the federal government? Do you have that information?
Within county government?
Yeah. Health department, I know.
Yeah,
But that's been answered. But I was wondering if there are any other departments in county government who receive direct benefits, resources, money, the check, wire, whatever it is that they can transmit the money.
As far as new, have not read or come across other than the health department, anyone else. But for the CURE grant, the sheriff department had, the health department, there was a couple of other ones that are slipping my mind. That 911 may have had something. I believe there was one more, but it's slipping my mind. That was for the the previous one.
Right.
But as far as the new one, I'm not aware of any other departments other than the health department.
If you get that information, run across additional information coming from the feds or state in terms of clarification, our local legislators from Representative House or Senator Joyce, or our federal partners, Durbin and Duckworth, let us know. Can you let us know via email?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
We have other areas within the county, as a whole, included in here, but it's within like county government itself. Yeah, I'm not aware of any other ones besides the health department.
Thank you.
At this time. I mean, some of this could change when we talk about this next, obviously, when more detail comes out. So we just all need to be aware that this is a work in progress right now as far as the details.
Have you received any preliminary, I know this legislation has not been even acted upon. Some of us were talking before the meeting started, and I'm almost getting on my knees and praying that the administration is talking about $3 trillion for infrastructure. Has there been any preliminary information released at all? I know that's new.
Yeah,
but you haven't heard anything? Okay.
Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. Just for clarification, Steve's office does the grant management side of it, and they're not the office that goes out and investigates and looks for grants, but they actually have been involved in the coding. 911 and the health department are separate boards and entities onto their own, so their money doesn't necessarily commingle, if you will, with ours in the decision-making process. All of the department heads they look and they keep in contact with their associations, the electeds, on their own grants. They chase that down. One of the things that we wanted to do was have our grant writer also be investigating those grant opportunities based on this as well. So we've never really, as a county centralized government administration, done that as far as looking out for everybody within county government. Some of the like Mr. Rowe gets stuff that I think is federal passed through through the state to us. I know the transportation stuff is all federal that comes to us for show bus, but you authorize me to sign that. The money never goes direct to those departments. It always goes through the county. And if I've missaid something there, Steve, just for clarification.
Well, yeah, the only thing I can add to that, not to change, is on the reporting side, when it's all said and done, it does come back to the county, and we all have, it's all under one umbrella that we have to do for the year end.
So we have the same EIN?
With grants, excuse me.
One of the things that the chairman mentioned yesterday, and I don't think we acted upon it, there was a murmur that went out when he was saying that he needs authorization for us to, receive the money. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but at this meeting, are we going to act upon what you said yesterday?
I have to put it on an agenda, and so these agendas were out. So I was going to put it on the full board agenda and try to make it as broad as possible for when those rules are promulgated, and as long as it doesn't commit us to spending any extra money, would you allow the chairman to sign the request to send the money? We can do that in an emergency because, per our rules, because we have to get that in a certain time period, and I don't want to miss that for our next meeting and have to call a special full county board meeting and spend that money. Does that make sense? So I was going to add it to the full board agenda in a couple of weeks.
And yeah, I might piggyback on that and add, if we could, we have the fund discussion as part of this presentation that we've had discussions with SKDO. This is so new that everybody's kind of reading and trying to figure out how it fits, in our government, because this is so brand new. How this is going to transact, that we're going to create a new fund just for this money to land in, and then keep track of where it goes, and keep specifically. So that might be something that we also do at the full board as far as authorization. Andy, that's something we could think about, or, we don't have it specifically ready to vote on today either, but it's something as far as transacting this when it, and being ready to transact it, when it shows up, and be ready to put the money when it gets, I'm assuming, wired to us. So.
All right, let's move forward with the presentation, please.
So yeah, I'll just go through with this quickly. On the first introduction, I think all of you are aware, on March 11th, it was signed into law. And then the direct aid to county is $65.1 billion. And then it's an overall intent to combat COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, including public health and economic impact. Of other interest, the second slide, the local allocation estimates, it was listed out in millions, so I listed that out, but I also put the thousands in there just to help the conversion of that information. And literally every city or village within the county is getting something from this. Now, I believe the counties are getting it direct, and everyone else will have to go through the state. I believe is how it'll be set up going forward. And theirs is within 90 days, I believe, for within the state, or possibly 120. Ours would be within the 60-day window, which we'll have on here.
Theirs could be up to 90 days.
Up to 90 days.
They have to, 30 days after they get it, they have to send it to the municipalities, and the feds have 60 days to send it to the states. So they could get it early before us. It's anywhere between 60 and 90 days.
Go ahead.
Any other questions on that? Okay, yeah, we can go to the next. Uses. Here's the high level that we know right now. Costs to respond or mitigate the public health emergency to respect the COVID-19 or its negative economic impact. Now that, I believe that will be where those reports we were talking about with sales tax and our impact. Now we've had other impact in other areas. The other area that comes to mind is like court fees and stuff, because of the courts being slowed down, shut down, and all the changes that happen there. So we're going to go through everything to look for areas as long as it allows us to. The second one, cost to respond to workers perform essential work. Third one, the cost of provisions of government services, extent of the reduction in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Costs to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, which I believe the committee discussed pretty thoroughly yesterday. Expect the U.S. Department of Treasury to provide additional guidance and information on the eligible expenses, and that's what we're waiting for right now and watching very closely. So if there's any questions on that. Restrictions. There are some restrictions out right now. I'm sure those will be added to from the Department of Treasury. The state or local governments are not allowed to use the funds to either directly or indirectly offset a reduction in the net tax revenue. As an indirect as receding of that, I interpret that as for us to go and drop property tax or something along those lines that the county board could potentially try to do. So they put that as a restriction. No funds shall be deposited in any pension fund. And at least right now out there, any local governments, including counties that fail to comply with federal law and related guidelines, shall be required to repay any of these funds back to the federal treasury. So we are going to watch that as closely as possible. As far as the program administration, the funds will be distributed by the Department of Treasury. The deadline, you discussed it fully yesterday, but we have through December 31st, 2024. Probably should have put December 30th, but that was what was listed on the information we have. The U.S. Treasury is required to pay the first installment to counties no later than 60 days after the enactment. So our deadline, basically if that happens, we should see this on or before May 11th this year. So that's how that interprets it. And then the second payment, no earlier than 12 months after the first payment. So it'll be next May to June. May 11th is roughly when we will, according to this, what we know to receive it. And then internal monitoring, here's some of the where we've been discussing the potential need for a new fund, potentially multiple funds as the conversations go on. Excuse me. This is, a new layer of work and documentation. With the volume of this, that's potential with all this is quite mind-boggling. And the ripple effect, for at least for the finance department, speaking for the finance department, is other funds. There's a lot of other funds connected to this bill, and workforce funds that that we're the fiscal agent for could get a lot more. So the amount of fiscal activity and how much how many transactions this equates to, and the reporting part of that, we're trying to discuss and estimate and talk about right now to be prepared for it. Create new policy and procedures as the board, and not only internally, but the uses of the money and to connect it to our responsibility to that money, and know as far as reporting and the reporting back to us, if it goes to a third party. And then, we plan on doing a best in class approach, similar to like what we did with the CURE grant reporting, which means when we send them stuff, it's going to be about that thick. So, the people on the other end, we're going to kill them with detail, as far as, and then require that detail as far as internally to make sure, that this is, that basically follow any other federal grant guidelines. Even though this seems different than those, we're going to take the same approach that it's a federal grant. We're going to follow the same procedures and ask that those be followed. So I don't know if there's any questions there before.
Mr. Featherin.
Hey, Steve, you're talking about all this money coming in and all these grants coming in. You only have so much staff. I mean, how are you gonna be able to fund a separate, a group, or justify hiring 2 or 3 people to help you disperse this or follow this money to make sure it's right? Because obviously we're not gonna have the money county-wise to hire people to do that, and you don't wanna subcontract everything out to private entities because they'll be charging a lot of money because everybody else will be doing that. So your staff, obviously, they're kind of booked up with what they got right now. How are you gonna handle,
Yeah,
you know,
this
millions
is,
of dollars coming through your department?
You know, we adjusted when we're running at the same level that we did through the downturn.
Yeah.
And
Through the,
we've got it balanced, and something like this throws us out of balance, because, and then it's like, okay, how do we, we're discussing that and trying to, we're trying to figure it out.
is there a number that you use to say, okay, I can disperse $1 million with one person, or I need $3 million? This is stupid questions, I know. So I'm not a
that's
CPA, but
yeah, that's the hard part as far as, and we're anxiously awaiting the additional information on this, because that will tell us so much more as far as how much has to be, what the requirement is to meet, and how much work that will be to meet that.
that can be
So,
part of this grant money also to pay for that, right?
Yeah, and then within the window, through 2024,
Okay.
That could all
So,
be part of it. Yeah.
You don't want to build up your department to 10 people and then
Yeah, not right
and
for
have to let
after,
them all
right,
go
when we-
at a certain date either, you know.
That's the tough part about this, is the amount of work in a short period of time. And then when you cross over, one of the things, the next point, if I may cross over to that, the final thought was what will be, the impact of the general fund when we step into 2025, considering where we're at right now. So in my own thought process on the final thought, it just asks, for this committee, the county board, all the departments, as we're thinking about all this and processing, whether it's internal or external, that the short-term versus long-term planning question, and I don't mean that by the planning department, just the overall planning for this, for these funds, is will the short-term federal funding create a long-term drain or long-term improvement to the general fund starting in 2025? Okay. And so anything that comes up, if it can be put through that test, because not to put a damper, but my job is to lay it out the way it is. And right now, the general fund is extremely tight. This is as far as the revenues that you see that have dropped, and kudos to all the departments for also trying to cut out what they did. But it's extremely tight right now, so we have to be aware of what ongoing expense will be there in 2025, and will there be a revenue to support that? So as compared to this is going to be a whirlwind. It's going to feel like we've got plenty of money, but in reality, what's the long term and what's the end result for the general fund? And being able to, so does everything end at 2024 and we go back to where we are right here, right now, today? That's really, comes down to the question and the challenge.
Is there any streamlining you could do with technology updates? Like would that be considered, that would go past 2024 then? If you had to buy a new system and update things, then it would carry over past that because it wouldn't be an expense at a later date? Or do you have to give this stuff back at 2024? Say you went out and bought a new system, you wouldn't have to give it back.
Yeah, technology would be what's the maintenance costs and stuff ongoing, beyond, the initial purchase versus the ongoing maintenance is the challenge.
The key,
there.
okay, the updates and stuff, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hunter?
This stuff we're talking about is like a learning experience for all of us. And as Steve said, questions are appreciated. What I was thinking about, Counselor, and you, Steve, had you thought about maybe developing a directed study for 400 or 500 level coursework for students or accountants who are looking for or studying for their MBAs. So they're not neophytes and have the expertise which would assist you. I mean, you don't have to sit over them and give them necessarily a lot of guidance. All I'm saying is that think outside the box. And as was just posed, and I leaned back and asked the chairman, I says, hey, man, he's gonna need some more staff. He said, yeah, we're gonna do that. All I'm saying is that if you got third level or third year law students and individuals who are working on their MBAs, if you have the expertise and you write up a directed study and the coursework, job description, et cetera, that may help you as well too.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. We are trying to think of every angle that we can to try to, interning, or, our initial thought was potential interns. That's a great angle and suggestion. So we are discussing that as we go forward here, so that we're ready as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler?
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, yesterday, that was the last item on that slide. There was three hires up that we want to get jobs posted for when we do have the rules. We will already have a candidate pool because we have to hit the ground running very quickly. So that was the third one on. There was a full-time employee for finance, with the understanding that it may not extend past 2024 in that role. So whatever we have to do, that's an understanding. Obviously, we're still doing benefits and all of that, but when you start talking about grant management and other things, the concern for me is that is a skill set. That's an expertise that's costly if you make your learning the ropes mistakes. So I would, and Steve may shuffle things around into somebody that's more experienced in that area and have this individual pick up some entry things or whatever. So we'll work on that, but the key is that we're going to be posting a position so we can get a candidate pool in, and that's what we talked about yesterday. So, and then it may take more depending on what type of bureaucracy is involved with this. We're going to minimize it, but like I said yesterday, if we're issuing grants to other organizations that, in my opinion, have to be GATA certified, we're going to have to create grant documents on our own, and that's a whole nother set of work that could be this, or it could be this room full of paperwork. I don't know. So we'll just have to take it as it comes, but we know we're going to need somebody else at the very least.
Any other questions for Mr. McCarty?
And amongst all of this new activity, we're diligently working with the outside auditors and trying to finish up, our final report for FY20. So there's a lot going on right now, and then this is all hitting as well. So we're very busy. So, and I promise if we do hire somebody, I won't drain the general fund past 2024 either. So then we'll have to follow our own recommendations. So.
All right, if there is nothing else, we'll let him get on to some of that other work then.
Okay.
Seeing nothing more, I will move. Next item on our agenda is the treasurer report. As Mr. Africano comes up, could I get a motion to combine and approve the treasurer's reports? Mr. Miller and Mr. Payton, a second. Let's do a roll call on the reports, and then we'll hear from the treasurer.
Ms. Polk raised her hand.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Polk raised her hand.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Polk, you had a question, or we were?
I just wanted a second, that's all.
All right. We'll move forward then. Roll call vote on combining and approving the reports.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield? Mr. Fairfield? You're muted. We'll come back. Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? He's still on mute. Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. What do you have for us?
Well, first, I want to see anybody with college-age kids, Steve. I have experts at spending money, so if you need any help, they're great at it. I don't know how many shoes 21 million buys, but I'm sure it's a lot. First, I wanted to, just a housekeeping matter, I wanted to say congratulations to my chief deputy, Shakira Parker. Her and her husband, Jimmy Parker, had a baby, Zaya. Their first child was born 8 weeks premature back in November, but the baby is home, has been since Christmas. It's gaining weight, and they have their family together, so I want to say congratulations to them. We've been working with SKDO to finish up our portion of what we do for the audit. Early payments are coming in for taxes. Of course, they're predicated on last year's bill, but I assume there won't be a whole lot of difference, I hope. And we are going to, obviously, this year, try to encourage people to pay remotely as best as we can. Obviously, I think this year and last year it was very important that people go to local banks, they use the mail, they use the computer. Of course, we're still going to take payments here, but we would like everybody to, as much as possible, to avoid coming in here. We have, I believe, Andy, you were copied on this. I had sent an email to John Beavis asking, and Anita may have been copied on that email as well, asking John Beavis what the regulations were in terms of vaccinations for people on the first floor, being that there potentially could be thousands of people that come through to pay their bill. Apparently there are no regulations, so we wait in line like everybody else, which is disappointing, but maybe by that point the vaccine will be open to everybody, so we can only hope.
That scares the hell out of me. I mean, because you guys may recall when we had the people down there doing the temperatures manually and stuff, didn't everybody catch COVID down there?
There was a fair amount of people on the first floor who had COVID.
Yeah, okay. So, tell Beavis that Hunter said, and I'm bigger than he is, that...
I'll CC you on the next email.
He may need to do something, think outside the box.
Well, I just thought, here, I can tell you this. There are some people that won't take the vaccine. Oh, sorry.
If we might, I think the chairman has something.
Sorry.
Right. And then what I was going to say is up until last week, the governor's order is the government workers weren't in line. As of last week, now they are, so they can all go register and get the vaccine.
Yeah, all I'm saying
Okay.
is that there's empirical evidence.
Upon availability.
Okay.
Well,
I just thought we should offer it to people who want it, who are going to be dealing with thousands of public.
Well, now they can get it before the governor said they couldn't.
Okay.
So.
Okay, yeah, because the data supports, your position on that. I got a question here real quick, because it involves revenue. When do you think we'll receive our tax bills?
Well, I always obviously try to get tax bills out as early as possible. It's always been a cash flow issue with Steve, and I think we call it a cash desert at that point. So we're always looking early. Dan Hendrickson, I can't send out tax bills till I get the levy from Dan. And Dan is going to have a change of personnel, specifically in that position. So we are going to endeavor to get them out as early as possible, but it will depend on when we get the levy from Dan. And I'm sure if you ask Dan, it will be predicated upon when he gets stuff back from the taxing districts as well. But I will endeavor to get them out as early as possible. Right now, I'm thinking that payment time will be between June 1st and June 30th, which is unfortunate. I don't like to be that late, but I've set it that late right now so that if we can get it out early, that's a benefit, and if not, we hit our target.
Based upon the personnel issue you just mentioned, maybe there's something that he may want to consider in terms of cross-training. That if you have somebody who's, leaving or whatever, that you'll have a backup or other people in the office who have that expertise.
But
What's that?
But in any case, we will take what we get as soon as we can get it, and we will put the tax bills in the mail. I'm sure the public is going to be excited to get them. So I want to make them happy. Steve, I probably should piggyback on what you just said. So we are working to I don't know if I would say develop a plan, but we're certainly talking through what paying our tax bill looks like downstairs this year. As all of you know now, there's an automated unit down there. Just takes your temperature in your face. You can tell if you have a mask on. But some of us have been down there when 3 people are coming in, and when 50 people are coming in, it won't work. And so I'll work with Andy and Anita and whoever else we need to, but we're going to need to address that. There's going to be a lot of people downstairs, and how we do that is yet to be determined, but it's something that we need to talk about. I think basically that's it. Yeah, I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't think I have anything else. Everything downstairs.
Mr. Whitter.
Thank you. I slipped through my mind before, but I wrote it down so I could remember when I got in the room. I talked to Nick as far as the e-waste announcement. He is able to put a stuffer in all the tax bills announcing the e-waste program. So he's getting me a price and what size that needs to be, any limitations. We got extra participation from the municipalities to and those entities that are part of the program to market this the first couple of years. So it's not county money, it's county mixed with everybody else's money that's going to market this. So once we get a number, we'll get those printed up and we'll figure out how to get them in the bills. But he says it's doable.
Tell me how much you have to spend.
about $100 less than you.
No, I'm teasing. I wasn't going to mention that until Andy said it, but I think that's a great idea. And to the extent that it falls within the law, which I assume it would, and Mr. Coughlin could tell us. But remember, we have to send these bills out regardless. And if there's something that we want to get in the hands of 46,000 people, it's a great way to use it. I mean, Andy's talking about a buck slip. That's going to be, it won't be a penny a piece. It'll be less than that. So it doesn't increase the postage because the weight's not really going to go up. So it's a great idea, and I think we should continue to think about it, to use it to our advantage. Obviously, we're mailing anyway. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be certainly happy to take them.
I see no questions on Zoom or in the room, so we'll move on to, thank you.
Sheriff is really ready. Look at him.
Yeah, we'll go to the Sheriff's Department. You have the monthly update in your packet. So we'll let the sheriff review the items on that.
Somebody's phone's here.
He's forgetful.
Nick? Thanks. I have one. I want to get rid of it. Good morning.
Good morning.
Real quick, just to touch on what Nick was asking about, I have been in conversations with the chairman to provide a CO to be here during tax season, so that he can take temperatures, maintain social distancing, and that whole process. So we've kind of addressed that. Once that need arises, we'll send somebody over to handle that. So it's been taken care of. You all should have received the monthly report. There's not a whole lot on there other than our numbers are declining slowly. However, both Indiana and the Central District U.S. Marshals have continued to send us detainees, which keeps that number fairly consistent. And we do get all of the new arrests from Chicago. U.S. Marshals. So that number will stay relatively consistent. As we have been advised by the Chicago Office of ICE, they are still in a holding pattern, as I'm sure everybody in here has seen snippets on the news regarding what's going on. So when we hear anything more, we will certainly let you know. One of the other issues that actually got brought up at criminal justice that is obviously a finance issue, and that is we have right now 27 local inmates who have been sentenced to the Illinois Department of Corrections who are still in our custody. We are awaiting word from the Illinois Department of Corrections to be able to transport those individuals to Joliet. That number has remained pretty consistent, which ultimately costs us money. So just to keep you advised.
Mr. Wheeler.
Have they ever given you a reason why they're not taking them specifically? Have they ever responded in writing or verbally why they're not taking them?
The new universal excuse, COVID.
That makes that money eligible to be reimbursed to us. Thank you.
Okay.
That's why I got that on the record.
Okay.
So if they don't pay us, we'll get it from another angle.
Okay.
Yep.
Earlier we were talking about the vaccine, and we are still awaiting any vaccine to do to administer that to our inmates. Our staff has had the ability to sign up. We have filled out all the paperwork actually twice because we wanted to make sure they got everything that they needed in Springfield, and we have yet to have any of our inmates vaccinated, which is problematic. As most of you know, we've had COVID throughout the building. It is slowly going away, but it creeps up every now and again. So we are awaiting the vaccine. So.
Those numbers are pretty minimal from
What's that?
The COVID.
Well, now they are. I mean, they were, for a while they were, we had the one housing unit that, of the 62 in there, we had 48 in one housing unit. And now it's just been kind of, 2 here, and then just when you think those 2 are recovered, then another one pops up. So it's been, I think right now, I think we have 5 or 6.
Yeah, because I remember last week your report
awaiting that final recovery date, as they refer to it. We've been fortunate that we have not had serious cases from the standpoint of ventilators or anything like that. We have had 2 or 3 that have gone to the hospital because of our protocol, which is if an individual's oxygen level is below 90 for a certain period of time, then it's, medical protocol to transport them to the hospital. So that has been done, I think, 2 or 3 times. But they are all back, and we have nobody in the hospital at this point. So, anything else?
Is there any other questions on the update? If not, I have on my agenda.
Yeah, body cams.
On the agenda, but I don't know.
Right.
where we're
Yeah.
at
So the body cam issue, it was determined. We were going to inquire with the state's attorney's office about whether or not that had to be bid, and their recommendation was that we bid it. So we have started that process. So there's really no action to take on it today.
Is there any other items for the sheriff? Mr. Wheeler.
The quick bid thing where they get back to you right away, or is it everybody's trying to do it at the same time so they're backlogged because of COVID?
No, it'll be, once we send out the specs, they'll get back to us fairly quickly.
So it could be ready for the next.
So
for the
we're
county board,
hoping,
for full board. And
actually, we're hoping for criminal justice.
Okay.
Because it's going to have to go back through committee anyway.
Okay, so
So,
that's, okay.
Yeah, we were hoping to have it done for today so you could approve it, move it to the county board, but we'll get it to the criminal justice, go through finance, and then back probably what are we in? Next month will be April, so it'll be May's county board meeting, I would guess.
First week of May, okay.
Mr. Wheeler.
Yeah, just a question that I thought that there might, I had a discussion with somebody, it might have been you, that we thought that the cameras themselves could be charged a tort, but not the service. Did you get any response to that?
I have not, but I have not officially written an inquiry,
Okay.
but I will.
I think I'd had, maybe it was someone in the SAO's office. I know that I had the conversation with
No,
somebody.
yeah, it was not me.
Okay, we'll find out, but that matters to this committee. That's substantial. The
Yes.
equipment cost.
Well, and the other issue that we're still pushing for that we really haven't, obviously it's out there, but supposedly there is money from the state of Illinois that we are going to try to get. It's minimal in the big picture, but I guess the sooner we do it, the more money that's available. So, yeah, we are going to ask, so maybe it won't be quite as much as we thought, so.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, just two-part question. 3653. And I need to know, if you had a magic wand, and you could develop trailer bills that would rectify some of the issues that you, as well as the Illinois Sheriff's Association, governmental units, et cetera, what would you do? And, you know, specifically, what's the Illinois Sheriff's Association doing regarding rectifying the problems with 3653? And if you had a magic wand, what would you do? I mean, you're on the front line, so you know what's going on.
Well, there's obviously there are things that are happening July 1st that are not going to be good for our community. Those are the things that I would address first. And we've talked about it before, the whole criminal trespass, the B and C misdemeanors that aren't now jailable after July 1st. The problem with something as simple as that is it's going to create exactly what we are trying to get away from, and what even the Democratic Black Caucus is trying to get away from, and that is interaction with police. I mean, we want to limit that. We don't want the interaction, because that's where, I mean, we want interaction because, I mean, police are good people and we don't mind dealing with the public, but the issues always come when we get called to a scene more than once. Obviously there's issues, and that's what's going to happen with criminal trespass, as something as simple as criminal trespass. And I know people may think of that as, oh, well, what's so big about that? Well, if I can't take you to jail, in the city, the county, other municipalities all have what are called agency agreements, where the business calls the police, and with that agency agreement, the police take that person to jail. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. So to answer your question, and to give you a definitive answer, if I had a magic wand, I mean, I would start over, if that makes any sense. And I know that's probably not what people want to hear, but, you know, there's so many things in this that we haven't even got through yet. I mean, we're still deciphering a lot of the things that are in this bill that, as even the proponents of it call it, the unintended consequences that we've already talked about. We've talked about the unintended consequences. Well, if they're unintended consequences, if we already told you what's going to happen, they're no longer unintended. They're consequences. So those are the first things that I would deal with, is the things that we know right now are unintended consequences. The good parts in it, you know, I've said before, and I hate to repeat myself, but, you know, the body cameras isn't a bad thing. I mean, I've said before, they're going to protect our officers a hell of a lot more than they're going to protect any offender. So I think those are good, as long as it doesn't affect the money that the board provides us for our budget for personnel. You know, the biggest thing right now that we're looking at, and I have it on my list as part of it, is cashless bail. Cashless bail, people don't understand the effect that cashless bail will have on our finances. I'm sure Steve McCarty knows what it's going to do to our money. There is a cost to do business in the criminal justice system. And I said it at the criminal justice meeting, and I'll tell you guys, the state's attorney uses resources from the county board that gets money from people who post bond. The public defender, the circuit clerk, police, corrections, probation, we all take a little bit of that pie to operate our budgets. And when people don't have to post bail, the clerk, who right now takes 10% of that bail, that's gone. So think about the amount. I mean, I can tell you right off the top of my head, in the last 2 weeks, we have taken in $25,000 cash. Now, what's 10% of $25,000? We lose that money. That money's gone. We took in $10,000 cash. What's 10% of 10,000? Another 1,000. I mean, every day that 10% is going to add up, and that money is gone.
Okay, what about you know, my question about what is the Illinois Sheriff's Association doing regarding the trailer bills?
So we have started to identify different things that we want to add, or that we want to initiate change anyway. The question's going to be, 3653 is the law now. So whether we recommend any changes or not, that's going to be a crapshoot whether or not the legislator will even look at the changes.
Nobody's taking a look at, nobody's sponsoring the.
Oh yeah, there's some bills out there. There's some trailer bills that are coming. I don't know whether or not they've been filed or not, but any trailer bill that doesn't get done now, there may be future trailer bills for the next session. I mean, there's going to be, because what the unintended consequences that have been discussed are, they may not see that unintended consequence for another 6 months, 8 months, a year, see what cashless bail does in 2023, which is when it goes into effect. Those are things that will continue. These trailer bills won't just start in March and April of 2021. Those trailer bills are going to be a continuum of things that, want to get changed once it's proven what those unintended consequences are. Right now, it's a lot of speculation, a lot of experience from people who do this job every day, but until it's shown to people, it's sometimes hard to convince people that there are going to be unintended consequences.
Mr. Kinzer.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to limit our questions to agenda items and try to respect what this committee is supposed to be doing, which is finances, and these other items perhaps could be taken to the Criminal Justice Committee.
I would add that if you recall, a couple years ago, there was legislation that allowed the waiver of fees and fines and court costs. And I guess I would just ask the question that's rhetorical, and that is, who's left footing the bill for our criminal justice system? Law-abiding taxpayers. That's who's going to end up footing the bill, because those who commit the crimes, they don't have to post bond, they don't have to pay their fines and costs, and this government services in this county will slowly and surely go away. And I don't mean to be negative, I'm just letting you know what those unintended consequences are going to be that have been talked about numerous times. We need to hold those accountable who are breaking the law and pay their fines and costs and fees. I mean, that seems simple to me, but I'm just a simple guy, so maybe it's more complex than what I know.
Sheriff, as chairman of this committee, I want to thank you for that, and say, I think that the executive committee, as I'm sure you're aware, is going to be doing a number of things that we'll want to coordinate with you.
Yep.
Because I think the majority of this committee, at least that's my judgment of their position, is.
Yeah, and the clerks, the circuit clerk's office should be involved as well, because that's who takes in this bond money, who disperses this bond money back to the county and refunds it to the individuals, because the individuals do get their bond money back on some occasion, which rightfully so. But yeah,
this will be a major agenda item.
Yes.
Executive committee, and include all appropriate people.
Absolutely.
Yes, very much. All right, thank you then.
Thank you.
Let's We don't have anything from the auditor's office. Is there any other business? Any old business? Any new business? Mr. Long, did you have something? Mr. Wheeler?
Yeah, just to let the committee know, just as soon as the audit is done, Steve and Anita are gonna start working on what the impact cashless bail could possibly have on those financial systems. It is a longer term project because it goes really down to the line item within our special and general fund, so it's a lot of work. So they're gonna be working on it. So I just wanted to mention that. The other thing is that I do think we can segregate those conversations between financial impact of the House bill here and the sheriff's side of it over there. That's fine. You know, we see each other. We can ask questions. I think that's okay. But I just want to clarify, there already is trailer bills out there, and one of them was to place to remove unqualified immunity or qualified immunity. That's already put out there, and it has legs to make police officers personally accountable financially for anything, which is not what was supposed to happen. So, and you have seen unintended consequences through one of the main sponsors of this legislation having a gun waved at him. The person bailed themselves out of jail, and the person had a problem with that. That they got out of jail. So yeah, the sponsor of the cashless bail had a real problem with that. So the unintended consequences happened immediately. Now that's not for this committee, but since we were talking about it, I thought I would bring it up. So without naming names, it's out there. You can read the papers for yourself.
Mr. Hunter?
This last comment I'm going to make, and I'm not going to direct my comments to anybody's name or anything. You know, there's a lot of things that we deal with in terms of county government. And if you don't know, if you want clarification about a specific issue, I think it's important that we convey those questions to the people who sit in that chair up there or at the microphone. I remember a gentleman yesterday spoke more than I did today, but there was never any particular concern about him conveying questions or directing comments towards the people sitting at that chair. You know, I'm going to ask questions as long as, you know, God gives me breath to do so. I think I see people nod their heads when I pose questions about information that's germane to county government. When you know better, you do better. And all I'm saying to you is that I have certain questions. I think certain things need to be conveyed to us as legislators so we understand why we're voting on certain things and why we make decisions based on the information that's provided by the department heads. And I'll continue to do so. This is America, not with a K, but with a C. So if somebody has a problem with me articulating what my concerns are, you know, talk with me outside of these confines as opposed to publicly trying to intimidate me or vilify or castigate me for what I pose in terms of questions.
Motion to adjourn. I'm sorry? We do have one, yes, thank you. There is one item on the agenda. And Dr. Polk, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to know if we would be able to have a workshop on people that want to be GATA certified.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Maybe
I don't think that that's necessarily appropriate for the county to do that. That training comes from the state. I don't really know that that's our responsibility to train people on how to be GATA certified. To be honest, I guess we could try to provide some information, but I don't know that that's something that's really within our purview to do. I don't know, Steve, what did we have to do to become GATA certified? Can you go to the microphone and say what I mean, it's the processes and procedures that you have and the internal controls you have within the county government. You can't teach somebody to set up those systems. They have to be able to set them up themselves. And you can't have audit findings, and you can't have some of those things that you, can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, that's not a simple answer, but we could potentially gather information, you know, that can be distributed so that, you know, that information, there's a lot to that, so it's not an easy, simple question. So, but we can certainly gather information and distribute it, so that way that information can be researched and utilized.
Yeah, be happy to do that, but we can't really spend money to hold trainings for people. That's not what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we do have one item on the agenda in terms of the 2019-20 ICRMT Work Compensation Policy Audit.
So real quick, this is the last few pages of your packet, and every year in December, January timeframe, our insurance company comes and audits our payroll. Our work comp is based on payroll by classification, among other things. Each of our employees, we've gone through, and you see this classification here, each has a different rate based on how dangerous or not dangerous the position is. So each employee is tagged with their work comp code, and actually it's a pretty quick process now that we give them all our payroll for the prior year based on each classification code. When we pay our policy this year, it's based on estimates. So this is the true up to last year. So the best you can hope for is to owe them a little bit of money. Not a lot, because we don't want a surprise, and we don't want a big refund, just like your tax return. We don't want them to hold our money for no reason. So we did actually pretty well and ended up owing them about $4,000. The other quick comment is on the back side, you see on the first page of this by classification, there's about a $7,800, about $8,000 difference. And then on the back of that page, there are different modifiers. And the one I want to bring your attention to that relates to my comments yesterday in executive relate to the experience factor. So that our experience modifier is 0.89. So our lower number of claims helps, and also the severity of the claims. So I said we had fewer claims this last year, but they were a little more serious. We doubled the amount of claims that had light duty with them. So it's always a balance there, how many claims and how serious they are. But things like light duty also helps us get people back to work, lower the cost of the claim. So right now we're at 0.89, so it's a reduction. That's good. I've seen other places where I've worked that it can get over 100%. So you're actually paying more than what perhaps the average employer would. So we're in pretty good shape. $4,000, $5,000 we owe. So that claim has been sent to finance and the auditor.
Okay. Is there any action we need to take on this? Thank you. Are there any other items that the chair's missed? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Mr. Long?
Can I make a proxy motion for our absent regular?
Well, we'll take that as a second, Mr. Kuster. All right. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.